Alex from ATM, and welcome to Behind the Screen, where I take a look at the real-life inspiration behind your favourite films and TV shows. Today, we're looking at one of Netflix's biggest dramas, Narcos. The series landed in summer 2015, and it has been a total runaway success. Everybody and their mum knows this series follows the real-life drug lord Pablo Escobar. But how much of this show is just magic realism? It's time to head behind the screen. Spoiler alert for Narcos Series 1 and 2. Also, there's going to be some pretty horrendous Spanish pronunciation coming up. Sorry, I tried. As everyone will know, Narcos does actually include several real-life characters in the show, including Steve Murphy and Javier Peña, who incidentally both serve as consultants on the show. So let's take a look at these guys a little bit closer. Murphy began his career as a police officer in West Virginia in 1975. He joined the DEA in 1987 when he was assigned to the Miami Field Division. He was assigned to Bogota, Colombia in 1991. Peña joined the Webb County Sheriff's Office before moving to the DEA in 1988 when he was assigned the co-agent on the Escobar case. Since we're already talking about main characters, it seems only fair to discuss the biggest of cheeses, Pablo Escobar. While the series starts with Escobar's movement into the narcotics business, he started his career out in a very different market. Escobar's brother Roberto reports that he started his criminal career by selling gravestones from clients who didn't keep up with their bills. Escobar's son Sebastián Marroquín claimed that his father began his life of crime with the selling of counterfeit high school diplomas from the University Autónoma Latinoamericana de Medellín, where Escobar studied for a short period of time. Marroquín has disputed many elements of the series, saying that the creators have made significant errors in the portrayal of his father. He has noted that Escobar was actually a supporter of Independiente Medellín and not Atlético Nacional. He also argues that his father never attacked the daughter of Gilberto Rodriguez at the wedding either. According to Marroquín, this was an absolute rule that was never violated by Escobar. You don't touch families. Furthermore, Escobar never threatened the people of Cali either. It was just the cartel. Escobar apparently put out a statement explaining that his family were from the area, so he had nothing against the people who lived there. And while we're discussing families, Marroquín states that it was actually his paternal grandmother who betrayed Escobar and decided to ally herself with her eldest son, Roberto. Together, they struck a deal with Los Pepes so that they could live peacefully in Colombia rather than existing in exile with those loyal to Escobar. While a considerable amount of the cast have real-world counterparts, some characters are entirely fictional, but with a subtle grounding in reality. Horacio Carrillo, for example, never existed, but his real-life counterpart was the Colombian police officer General Hugo Martinez, who was the original commander of the Search Block, a special police unit set up with the sole objective of bringing down Escobar. Interestingly, after Carrillo died in Season 2, another character called Hugo Martinez was introduced, played by Juan Pablo Schuck. The real-life Hugo Martinez is very much alive, but the decision to kill Carrillo was supported by Murphy, who said that the writers did a great job. Valeria Velez, Escobar's mistress, played by Stephanie Sigman, is another character who never really existed. She is, however, based on Escobar's real-life mistress, Virginia Vergeo, who actually fled to the US in 2006 in exchange for information on Escobar and the brothers Gilberto and Miguel Rodriguez Orihuela of the Cali cartel. Her testimony led to the brothers being sentenced to 30 years in prison and $2.1 billion in assets being seized by the US Department of Justice. Juan Diego Diaz, also known as Kika, is also part of the fictitious character club. He's based on an assassin of the same nickname, but the real-life Kika is actually Dan Denis Munoz Mosquera. He was the supposed chief assassin of the Medellin cartel, and is held responsible for the 1989 Avianca flight bombings that we see in episode 6 of series 1, but we'll come to that in a minute. So while Narcos generally stays pretty true to the history in terms of character, there are still some minor variations in there. Now, Narcos producer Eric Newman has said that the show is actually about 50-50 fact versus fiction. And interestingly, one of the most questioned elements of the show is Murphy's cat. Despite being deathly allergic to cats, the death of Murphy's pet was still pretty upsetting to me. Worry ye not though, because it never actually happened. While in the series, the cat serves as a Godfather-esque warning to stay away from Escobar, in reality, Murphy's cat died of a heart attack. The real Murphy has confirmed it had absolutely nothing to do with Escobar. But if we are talking about deaths, there is one I really ought to mention: the main man himself. Escobar's final days and his eventual death may not have played out exactly as they did on the show. For one, Escobar never went to visit his father's ranch. This entire section is fictionalized for the series, because Murphy, Peña and the DEA didn't actually know where Escobar was during this period. Murphy and Peña believed that he would still be in Medellin because it was his home. He had a lot of friends there and people who were willing to hide and protect him. Despite this theory, Escobar's son Marroquin notes that at the end of his life, Escobar was almost entirely alone, not surrounded by a band of loyalists like the show portrays. According to his son, everyone with the exception of Angelito and Chopo had either surrendered or had been killed. And then there's the whole mystery of Escobar's death. In reality, Escobar received 2 shots to the body, one to the leg and one to the torso, and one final fatal shot through the ear. But the origin of this final bullet has never been confirmed. Some believe that Escobar was shot during the final gunfight, or that this fatal shot was actually part of an execution by Colombian police. Escobar's family, however, remain resolute that he committed suicide. Both his son and brother believe that he would never have let someone else kill him. Roberto Escobar, his brother, said that Escobar repeated every day that if he was ever cornered without a way out, he would shoot himself through the ear. Despite this, Murphy refutes all suggestions of suicide, saying that there was never any gunshot residue or powder burns to the face which would have been present if he did kill himself. Obviously, the show got around this mysterious unknown element of Escobar's death and went down the execution route. But this wasn't the only time they had to pick reality. One of the most interesting alternative takes on reality is the infamous Avianca Flight 203 bombing. In the show, we see an unwitting suicide bomber boarding the doomed flight carrying the bomb in his briefcase. But in reality, this event was a little different. The actual events leading up to and including the bombing are actually relatively shady, so we'll give Netflix a pass here, because they needed to come up with a definitive narrative about what happened. What we do know is that the actual bomb was never inside the cabin of the plane. It was placed near the fuel tank. When it was detonated, roughly 5 minutes into the flight, the bomb ignited the vapours in the empty fuel tank. The bomb blast caused the aeroplane to rip apart, the nose section separating from the tail before the entire aircraft came down over Bogota. The crash killed all 107 people on board, as well as 3 people on the ground who were killed by falling debris. Several hours after the crash, a man purported that a group called the Extraditables had blown up the plane to kill 5 police informants on board who had supposedly revealed Escobar's hiding place. However, like the show reveals, Escobar was actually attempting to assassinate the presidential candidate Cesar Gaviria Trujillo, who was taken off the flight for security reasons. Medellin cartel's chief assassin Dan Dennis Munoz Mosquera, aka La Kika, was convicted of the bombing in 1994. Witnesses testified that he had arranged for the bomb to be placed on the flight. Escobar was also indicted in the trial, but he had actually been killed the year before. Interestingly though, Escobar's son also refutes this, and argued that La Kika had nothing to do with the bombings. It was actually, according to him, Carlos Cantano who carried out the whole plot underneath the orders of Escobar. So now you know a little bit more about the real-life Narcos, but are you as pumped for the new series as I am? And will this series suffer now that Escobar is out of the picture? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to All Time Movies, and we will see you next time.